have you back.
It is.
Good to be back.
Especially when we're talking about the Patriots, because we want to get your take on this.
Yeah. Where's the sidekick, Skip? The Rob and Eric show.
I think we're going to talk serious football. So he's not just going to come out and say how much he hates Tom Brady. And the Patriots.
So we'll break it down. How exactly did the Patriots pull it off against the Chiefs?
Well, the good news is they got rid of Bob Sutton, right? He was the big problem there. And to me, that's ridiculous. You've got this high-powered offense that gets shut out at home, and it's Bob Sutton's fault. It's Bob Sutton's fault that Dee Ford lines up off sides for the third interception of the game. I mean, if you flip it, are you going to fire Brian Flores because the Patriots gave up 31 points in 12 minutes in the second half, or a field goal with 32 seconds left in regulation? To me, the fact that Patrick Mahomes and offensively, they couldn't recognize some of the things that New England was doing early is the difference in the game. And the biggest thing was J.C. Jackson, who's a rookie free agent from Maryland, who's 5'10", who in college had 9 pass interference penalties and 2 holding calls in his final 2 years. He's isolated man-to-man on Travis Kelce, and Kelce barely gets the ball. Now, they finally figured that out in the second half, and when you look through it, J.C. Jackson shows up time and time again because they were able to exploit that matchup. The other thing is the pass.
By the way, he had 3 penalties in the second half.
3 penalties in
one
the second
drive.
But that all was missed in the first half, and part of that is inexperience, but part of that is as a staff being able to say, okay, they're taking away Tyreek Hill, they're doubling high-low double.
Yep.
And
wait a second. Did anybody not expect that? Is that a shocking maneuver?
No. That's not a shocking maneuver. Yeah. And you can do things for a double team. You can motion a guy and run over routes. Right. Over routes are hard. On the one ball he caught, he drove inside. He forced the safety inside and broke to the corner, and they hit a big play. So you can take advantage of those things too. And then you've got Patrick Mahomes, who, what's one of the best things he does? The plays that are unscripted, getting out of the pocket. What was New England going to do? They were going to keep him in the pocket. They were going to keep him in the pocket.
Yes.
So move the pocket, bootlegs, dashes, things like that, and then figure out the rush scheme. The tackle set so deep for Kansas City. The ends come up the field, break underneath. The tackles wrap around, so you got pressure. You keep him in the pocket. So I know everybody wants to have a reason they lost. So Bob Sutton, he's the sacrificial lamb. He's the one we're going to roll out and say, okay, if we get the defense fixed, everything will be fine. But to me, it's so much more than that.
So the scheme is to keep Mahomes in the pocket, and many times straight up the gut was wide open because they would loop everybody. The ends and even the tackles might stunt loop, but they would dare him just to take off up the middle, which he's not prone to do. He doesn't seem to like that. Patrick.
No, he wants to work
right.
He wants to go sideways. So they had figured that part out. And once late, he got outside one time, and I don't think it was called, where he threw it to the backup running back.
It was the first play of the overtime, where he gets outside of the pocket. It's 21 yards. It gets the drive going.
Yeah. Not the overtime, the final drive of the final drive of the. And he threw it to Spencer Ware, right? The backup running back. Yeah, right.
Hit him on a bad sprint.
Yeah. Okay. So go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So are you faulting Andy Reid then on play calling? Do you think that the Patriots stayed one step ahead of Andy, that he wasn't flexible enough to help his young quarterback figure it out on the fly faster?
Well, here's what I'm saying is, it's a group effort. And I have a real problem with when one person gets sacrificed for a group effort. When you have the supposed MVP of the league, this unstoppable offense who gets shut out at home, when you've got Travis Kelce one-on-one against a rookie free agent undersized corner with a history of pass interference calls.
I mean, there was a reason he wasn't drafted. And he was a hot recruit for Florida early on. Then he had an incident at Florida, wound up going to Riverside
Community College,
and then to Maryland. But he started for 2 years at Maryland, and so you'd think, well, he's back on track, and yet nobody took him until Bill signed him as a free agent.
Yeah, and to be able to see that. And that being said, you've got to give Patrick Mahomes a little bit of leeway because he hasn't seen these things.
Right.
And this is an issue with young quarterbacks, and it's going to be a little bit of an issue with Jared Goff. Guys haven't seen it, where Tom Brady, he walks up the line of scrimmage, If you don't disguise, he knows exactly what you're in. He's got.
So you tell me you can't line up in cover 5, which is 22 man, line up in single high safety, and Tom Brady won't recognize that?
I promise you, if you line up in a stationary defense, you are going to get beat.
Thank you.
And you're going to get beat badly.
Well, let me ask you a question. What if you can't stop the run and you don't reroute the receivers? What would happen?
Yeah, that's an issue too. And look, we always talk about the new NFL, the new NFL. What did New England do? They got in 21 personnel, 2 backs, 1 tight end, and the first play of the game is about as classic a football play as you can get. Ace ice, down block to the backside linebacker, straight ahead, no fair dodging, and it was that old school football with the fullback leading up. And
straight power.
Yeah, straight power. And you got to be able to handle those plays too.
Okay. So remember, Kansas City had the best pass rushing. They tied for the most sacks in pro football, and they got none because of what?
Well, part of that is a combination of the way that they used Cordarrelle Patterson, the way that they ran the ball in that traditional sense early. So they run it. Anytime you do that, that slows down pass rushers. Now they've got to honor the run first. They can't tee off. Then you bring in a guy like Cordarrelle, who's more of a gadget guy, and they mix in screens. They mix in misdirection, things like that. That slows down pass rushers. You've got the mixture of the back quick out, back out of the backfield quickly. So you're constantly putting the pass rushers on their heels as opposed to letting them tee off and rush the passer.
They kept it in 3rd and manageable. It was 3rd and 1, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3. So now you still have the element of the run or the pass. But see, Skip, E-Man, I think this was a culmination. Now, we might say he was fired for this game, but he was fired for the previous 4 games losses also. Because in those 4 losses, they lost 5 times this year, including the playoffs. The offense has scored 36 points a game, but the defense has given up 40.
And don't forget the previous year's playoff game in which they were up 21-3 at half, and they blew it to Tennessee.
Let's put that aside.
Yeah.
What Coach Belichick says, your 2 best players, because Tyreek Hill in the Thursday night game 2 years ago goes 7 for $143 and 1 touchdown. He goes this year on Sunday night, 7 for $148 and 3 touchdowns. Coach Belichick says, let me tell you what I'm going to do. Let me tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to let Tyreek Hill and I'm not going to let Travis Kelce beat me. Now,
although he was daring.
He was ready to let Travis Kelce beat. He wasn't going to let Patrick Mahomes out of the pocket beat him.
Get those broken plays. Yeah. He's going to throw the ball over your head. But my problem is, E-Man, you know this, in 3rd and 10, 3 straight times, I'm going to double Gronk, I'm going to double Edelman. If Tom Brady can scan the field and Philip Dorsett can beat me or Chris Hogan can beat me, I can live with that.
Yep.
But I'm not going to let guys that I know Brady have the greatest rapport with, I'm not going to let those guys beat me.
But in his defense, you saw what they did with Edelman. They motion him down. They create problems with double teams. They create issues with coverage, with leverage, and it's constantly, and that's where you look at a guy like Tyreek Hill, who's doubled high-low. Now you've got to create problems with that type of leverage. And say what you want about what happened defensively. How about the Patriots giving up 31 points? Kansas City had the ball 12 minutes in the second half and scored 31 points.
Right.
Yeah.
So
one of those was a turnover.
What's that?
One of those was a turnover.
Yeah, but Kansas City also created 2 turnovers.
Right.
And they would have had a 3rd turnover if a guy lines up
in the backfield
onside. Is that anything to do with scheme or
no
philosophy?
Okay, just remember, the previous 4 times Belichick had met Andy Reid on the football field, Andy Reid had his way all 4 times. 3 times he scored 40-plus points. Obviously, in the regular season Week 6 game, he scored 31 in the second half, did Andy Reid at Foxborough on Belichick's defense. And it is Bill's defense. I know Brian Flores is the coordinator, but Bill's overseeing the defense. And then in the playoff game that they won 27-20 at Foxborough against Alex Smith, if you look at the numbers, Kansas City just dominated the stats but couldn't cash in the red zone. So they were having their way with this defense. And even though it took a while, to your point, they started having the ball enough. They had the ball 3 minutes of the 4th quarter and scored 24 points. That's outrageously bad defense to me. And to your final point was that they drove it and tied the game and sent it into overtime, so they couldn't stop Patrick Mahomes in the second half. They fooled him and Andy Reid in the first half long enough that they only had the ball 9 minutes of the first half. It was 21-9 in time of possession. But in the end, it was incumbent upon Brady and the offense just to win the game a keep away, or they're going to lose the football game because Kansas City is too explosive for this defense. It's just not that good. And again, they tricked them a little bit. They had a couple of nice, shocking stops early, shut them out in the first half. But then when you hold the ball for 44 minutes to 21 minutes, that's the only way to level the playing field in Kansas City against Patrick Mahomes, because they started to figure it out. J.C. Jackson switched off, and he was covering he's on Sammy Watkins when he got the penalties, right?
Yeah, and that's fair. That's fair. But there was a whole first half of football.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the fact that it takes you a half of football to figure it out, to me, then to shift that to only one side of the ball and say, okay, it's your fault, you're not looking at it in the entire context, because the whole game matters. Now, we often discount things that happen early, whether it's penalties in the game, you know, those things are glossed over, but they're significant. And you can look at those plays and say, this had just as much of an impact as a play that happened later in the game.
Bottom line, have you ever seen Tom Brady any better than he was Sunday at Kansas City?
Oh, yeah, when they came back and beat Atlanta in the Super Bowl, I thought he was pretty good there, too.
But he was pretty
List, right?
Yeah.